Lucas's family had always felt like a stage where he played the role of a background character. His father, a strict businessman obsessed with results, loved to praise the achievements of his older brother, Peter, who had shown a knack for business from an early age. Meanwhile, Emma, the youngest sister, was treated as the jewel of the family, with her artistic talents constantly celebrated. Lucas, on the other hand, was the aimless dreamer, the problem waiting to happen. Every glance or word seemed to carry a silent judgment. You'll never be like them. Growing up in such a household was like living in a perpetual courtroom. His father, always dressed in a suit with a critical gaze, made a point of reminding Lucas that he was the opposite of Peter, who had known his life's direction since he was 10. Even family dinners were showcases of comparison. The success of his father's company was often credited to his older brother, while Lucas's small victories were ignored or dismissed. When are you going to do something that actually matters? The question was never spoken outright but lingered in every gesture and expression. Lucas felt like a stranger in his own home, trying to find a place where he could be more than just the shadow of broken expectations. At one point he attempted to impress his father with an independent project, only to be met with a stifled laugh and a dismissive comment. "That's not serious work, son." The humiliation seemed to grow in waves, fueled by siblings who found amusement in highlighting his failures. Yet somehow this constant rejection began to plant an idea in Lucas's mind. Maybe he needed to prove them all wrong, but that would be easier said than done. "Lucas, do you really think this is going anywhere?" His father's dry tone echoed through the room as he glanced over the draft of a project Lucas had spent countless nights working on. "This is the kind of thing people with no idea what real work is do," he added, handing the paper back as if it were a worthless scrap. The silence that followed was heavier than the words themselves. Peter, sitting on the couch with a faint smirk, shook his head and muttered, "Leave it to the pros, bro." Lucas didn't reply, but the bitter taste of humiliation rose in his throat. On another occasion, during a family lunch, his mother asked Lucas about his plans for the future. Before he could answer, his father interrupted with a stifled laugh. "Him? Planning what? He can't even finish what he starts." The collective laughter around the table landed like a precise blow. Even Emma, who usually stayed neutral, smiled while his older brother seized the opportunity. "If you want, I can give you some tips on how to be taken seriously." Lucas tried to respond, but any attempt to defend himself seemed futile in that environment. Lucas's invisibility wasn't just a feeling, it was a palpable reality. The family's important conversations happened without him. Decisions about the family business were made between his father and Peter, while Lucas was sidelined with the label of unreliable. It was as if any effort to be heard was met with a wall of doubt and disdain. Deep down he knew that to change things he'd have to break free from this suffocating cycle and prove he was more than they expected. But how? That question consumed him daily, even as the looks of disbelief continued to follow him. Lucas had long lost count of how many times he tried to prove he was capable, but it seemed no one in the family was willing to listen. During one of his father's weekly business meetings, Lucas gathered the courage to present an idea he believed could help expand the company. As he spoke, Peter fiddled with his phone, and Emma doodled absent-mindedly in a corner. His father interrupted him midway through the explanation, saying, "We already have a strategy that works. No need to reinvent the wheel." It felt like an invisible punch to the gut. Lucas sat down, trying to mask his shame, while his father carried on with the meeting as if he had never spoken. Even in the simplest situations, Lucas was treated as a dispensable detail. At a family gathering, while everyone was praising Peter's new projects and Emma's recently sold paintings, no one even asked how Lucas was doing. He tried to join the conversation, mentioning a small milestone he had reached in his recent work, but was met with a curt, "That's nice, son," before his father shifted the topic back to Peter. The constant invisibility made him start to question if he truly had anything of value to offer. The pain of being ignored followed Lucas everywhere, but what hurt even more was the relentless effort he put into being noticed. He spent countless hours on projects, pushed himself to learn new skills, yet he was always overshadowed by his siblings' more glorious achievements. Once he stayed up late finishing a report that could benefit his father's company, but the next day no one even acknowledged it. Peter made a snide comment. "Wow, looks like you actually worked hard for a change. Who'd have thought?" And once again, Lucas was left with the crushing realization that no matter how hard he tried, his voice would always be just an echo in an empty room. Lucas's epiphany came on an ordinary day, but its impact was profound. During a family dinner, as everyone celebrated the closing of a major deal led by Peter, Lucas decided once again to share an idea he had been nurturing for weeks. "I've been thinking about a project focused on small businesses," he began, only to be quickly interrupted by his father, who with a mocking tone exclaimed, "Lucas, we're talking about serious business here, not child's play." The laughter that followed was like a knife through his chest. He looked around the table hoping someone would defend him, but all he found were condescending gazes. That night marked a breaking point. When he got home, Lucas looked at himself in the mirror, as if facing the person who had always tried to please everyone but never himself. "Why do I keep seeking approval from people who will never truly see me?" he murmured, feeling a mix of anger and liberation. In that moment he realized that the validation he had been chasing wasn't the answer. If he wanted change, it had to start with himself, away from the family's shadows. He decided he would no longer waste energy proving his worth to people who had already written him off as a failure. The next day, Lucas made a radical decision. He took the small amount of money he had saved and began planning his own venture. It was risky, but for the first time he was doing something entirely for himself. He spent hours researching, setting goals, and seeking partnerships. With each step he felt the weight of others' expectations lifting. Lucas didn't know if he would succeed, but for the first time in years he felt in control of his life. Now the challenge was to see how far his determination could take him, and he knew this was only the beginning. Lucas took the first step to change his life in a way that was almost timid but profoundly significant. He found a tiny space to rent in a modest neighborhood and decided to transform it into the office for his new project. It was far from luxurious. Peeling walls and a worn-out floor practically begged for renovations. But to Lucas, that place represented something far greater than its appearance. With his limited savings, he bought a simple desk, a comfortable chair, and a second-hand laptop. "This is where it all begins," he told himself, feeling a mix of fear and excitement as he set up the small space. His project? A consultancy service for micro and small businesses. A segment overlooked by his father's company, but one Lucas believed had enormous potential. He spent nights creating a simple yet functional website and used social media to promote his idea. Knowing the competition was fierce, Lucas decided to offer something unique: personalized strategies tailored to the limited budgets of his clients. In his first month he landed his first client, a small neighborhood shop in need of help attracting more customers. The contract was modest, but the feeling of achieving something on his own was immeasurable. Each small victory was a building block in constructing his independence. Lucas used feedback from that first client to improve his services, gradually attracting attention from other small business owners in the area. He was far from being a threat to his father's big company, but that didn't matter. For the first time he felt like he was writing his own story, free from the need for anyone's approval. Even so, he knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead and he needed to be ready. The first few months of Lucas's new project were a true test of endurance. Without significant financial resources, he had to do everything himself, from attending to clients to updating the website and learning about digital marketing. One night he spent hours watching YouTube tutorials on creating effective ads, only to see his first campaign completely ignored. The disappointment hit hard, but he knew that every mistake was an opportunity to learn. Even so, working 12-hour days without immediate results was frustrating. He had no choice. Quitting was not an option. As if the challenges weren't enough, his family's criticism continued to haunt him. "You're wasting your time with this hobby," his father said when Lucas mentioned his initial progress. Even Peter, with a sarcastic tone, offered help. "Do you want me to get you a job at the company? It's safer than playing entrepreneur." Those words stung, but Lucas used every comment as fuel. He knew he was building something bigger than they could see. Yet, the weight of carrying the dream alone was real, and there were nights when he questioned whether he was on the right path. Financial struggles were a constant. He couldn't afford to hire anyone, so he had to learn skills he never imagined he'd need, like fixing a broken printer or painting the office walls. The work was grueling and the returns were small. But amid the challenges, Lucas began to notice small victories. A satisfied client recommending him to someone else. An idea that worked and brought in some profit. Each step forward was a personal triumph. Proof that he was on the right track, even when everything seemed to conspire against him. Deep down he knew the worst was yet to come, and he had to be ready to face it. Lucas met Ryan in a chance encounter that felt almost predestined. Ryan was a seasoned entrepreneur who had faced similar challenges years ago, and upon hearing Lucas's story during an informal conversation, he saw something familiar. "I've been where you are now," Ryan said with an understanding smile. They talked for hours in that humble cafe, exchanging ideas and strategies. Ryan offered not only advice but also a valuable perspective. He understood the ups and downs of building something from scratch. That connection gave Lucas something he hadn't felt in a long time: confidence. Beyond being a source of emotional support, Ryan brought complementary skills that transformed Lucas's small business. With a sharp eye for marketing and an extensive network, Ryan helped Lucas reach clients he had never imagined. He suggested improvements to the website, organized more effective campaigns, and even introduced Lucas to a group of small business owners looking for affordable solutions. Together, they began shaping a strategic plan that combined Lucas's passion for helping small businesses with Ryan's practical experience. More than just a strategic partner, Ryan became a friend and mentor. In moments of doubt, it was Ryan who said, "You're not alone in this." Their work meetings were almost therapeutic, with Ryan sharing stories of his own failures and successes. This partnership quickly started to bear fruit. Lucas's small business finally began gaining traction, and he started to feel that he was building something truly sustainable. However, he knew the road ahead would still be long, and having someone to share the burden made all the difference. After all, the greatest achievements are rarely accomplished alone. Lucas's progress was like a river gradually gaining strength. One satisfied client brought another, and soon his consultancy for small businesses began to stand out in the local market. With Ryan's help, he secured contracts with 3 regional stores, expanding his clientele and bolstering his reputation. The small office, which once felt makeshift, was transformed into a functional and inviting space. Lucas invested in simple yet elegant furniture and decorated the walls with artwork that reflected his vision, growing together with those whom no one believes in. It wasn't just an office, it was a symbol of his struggle and growth. One of his greatest achievements came when a campaign he created for a client delivered impressive results. A local bakery, struggling to attract customers, saw its foot traffic double after implementing Lucas's strategies. The owner was so impressed that he recommended Lucas's services to other business owners. Suddenly, Lucas's name began circulating as someone who really understood what small business owners needed. He knew he still had much to learn, but that recognition was the validation he had never received from his own family. With growth came new opportunities. Lucas was invited to speak at a local entrepreneurship event. The modest stage, with rows of seats filled by budding entrepreneurs, seemed small, but for him, it was a monumental milestone. He shared his journey with honesty and passion, emphasizing that failure isn't the end, it's a new beginning. The feedback was immediate. More contacts, more partnerships, and a renewed sense of purpose. Lucas understood that, despite his small successes, a long road still lay ahead, but now he had something to sustain him. A clear vision of where he wanted to go. Lucas's progress began to draw attention even at home, but the shift in his family's perception was laden with resistance. During a Sunday lunch, his father remarked with his usual ironic tone, "I heard you've landed a few clients. Beginner's luck, I suppose." Peter chimed in, adding, "Yeah, but let's see how long it lasts. These small businesses don't have much of a future." Lucas kept his composure, but inside he felt the weight of their words. Even with the numbers and results on his side, it seemed nothing would ever be enough to change their view. On another occasion, Lucas shared that he was expanding his client base to another city, something he couldn't have imagined just months earlier. The family's reaction was a mix of surprise and skepticism. Expanding? Don't you think you're moving too fast? His father asked with a skeptical look. Emma, in a playful tone, added, just remember, a good idea isn't a guarantee of success. Those words felt like an attempt to undermine the pride he felt in his achievements. Lucas realized that even without saying it outright, his family still viewed his efforts as a fragile attempt to prove himself. Despite the comments, something began to shift subtly. His father, though he wouldn't admit it, seemed more attentive when Lucas mentioned new contracts or partnerships. Peter, on the other hand, started asking questions about Lucas's strategies, thinly veiled as casual curiosity. The family's resistance was evident, but Lucas could tell that doubt was beginning to share space with a sliver of recognition, even if they would never openly acknowledge it. For Lucas, however, their approval was no longer the goal. His true achievement was learning to validate himself. The turning point in Lucas's journey came unexpectedly and boldly. He discovered a small commercial space for sale in a strategic location, a property his father had dismissed years ago as useless for any profitable business. To Lucas, however, it represented a unique opportunity. He pooled his savings, negotiated with the owner, and with Ryan's support, transformed the space into a hub for small business owners. There, Lucas offered consultancy, training, and even events focused on the growth of small enterprises, something that had never crossed his family's vision. The impact was immediate. Within months, the center became a regional hotspot, attracting entrepreneurs seeking affordable alternatives to traditional consultancies like the one led by Lucas's father. That's when the rumors reached his family. During a dinner, Peter casually mentioned hearing about a local company stealing small contracts. Interesting, isn't it? He said, unaware he was talking about his own brother. Lucas stayed silent, offering only a subtle smile, while his father muttered something about amateurs in the market. The real shift occurred when one of his father's former clients decided to switch to Lucas's services. The news sent shockwaves through the family, though no one addressed it directly. The discomfort was palpable, especially as Lucas began gaining recognition at industry events as an emerging name to watch. Despite this, his family maintained an air of disdain with remarks like, "It's just a passing trend." But Lucas knew he had crossed an important threshold. He was no longer a background character in the family story, he was now a direct competitor. And this was only the beginning. Lucas never imagined his work would be recognized so profoundly until he received an invitation to a regional awards ceremony. The event, organized by an association of entrepreneurs, highlighted initiatives that fostered the growth of small businesses. When he saw his name among the nominees alongside major companies, he initially thought it was a mistake. Yet there it was, Lucas Anderson, Impact on Local Development. Ryan was the first to encourage him to attend. "You deserve this, man. They're finally seeing what I've known all along." On the night of the ceremony, the hall was filled with influential business people, including some acquaintances of his father. When the presenter announced the award for Best Solution for Small Businesses, Lucas held his breath. Hearing his name echo through the microphone sent a wave of emotions crashing over him. Walking up to the stage and holding the trophy in his hands felt surreal. He gave a brief thank you but used his speech to emphasize his mission. "This award isn't just mine. It belongs to every small entrepreneur who believed that big achievements start with small steps. This is only the beginning." News of the award spread quickly, inevitably reaching his family. A prominent article in a local newspaper described Lucas as a shining example of perseverance in entrepreneurship. During a family dinner, his father flipped through the newspaper, feigning disinterest, but his expression betrayed a mix of surprise and discomfort. Peter remarked with a slight smirk, "Well, looks like the kid actually did something big." Lucas no longer needed to hear the words that would never come. He had already found the recognition that mattered. not from their approval but from the impact he was making in the world. The moment of reckoning arrived at a business event organized by the industry's leading association, an annual gathering of renowned entrepreneurs including Lucas's father and Peter. It was a formal occasion, filled with elaborate speeches and impactful announcements. Lucas's father was there to present a project from his company, fully expecting to once again be the center of attention. However, something unusual caught everyone's eye. The main panel displayed an unexpected name for the closing keynote. Lucas Anderson, turning small businesses into big dreams star. Surprise rippled through the family's table. Lucas? Our Lucas? Peter murmured, a mix of skepticism and disbelief in his voice. Their father, visibly unsettled, tried to mask his reaction with a serious expression, but the truth was undeniable. When Lucas walked onto the stage, dressed in a simple yet elegant suit, the hall erupted into applause. He glanced briefly in his family's direction before starting his presentation. Over the next 20 minutes, Lucas shared his journey, from the initial struggles to the achievements that had empowered small entrepreneurs to become catalysts of change in their communities. The family's reaction was a spectacle in itself. Peter, who had always belittled him, sat in complete silence, his arms crossed defensively. Emma, perhaps for the first time, seemed genuinely impressed, a shy smile on her face. Their father, on the other hand, maintained a stern expression, but the faint flush of embarrassment was impossible to hide. The realization that Lucas had not only exceeded their expectations but had also become a respected name in the same industry was something none of them had anticipated. The impact of that night would be lasting, not just for his family but for Lucas, who had finally proven that no one defines his worth but himself. Lucas's newfound recognition not only shifted his position in the industry but also created palpable tension within his family. The spark for a confrontation came during what was supposed to be a quiet family dinner, but it quickly turned into an emotional battleground. "Congratulations, Lucas. It seems like you really pulled it off," Peter said, his tone wavering between admiration and sarcasm. Lucas, tired of years of veiled jabs, responded firmly, "I did, despite all of you, not because of any support." The table fell silent. For the first time he had voiced the burden he had carried for so long. Their father, visibly uncomfortable, tried to take control of the situation. "You're exaggerating, Lucas. We've always wanted the best for you." But Lucas didn't back down. "The best for me or the best you thought I should be? For years all I ever heard was that I was a failure. You didn't see what I was doing, only what I wasn't. And now that I've achieved something you think it erases everything." His voice wasn't angry, but it carried an intensity that no one at the table expected. It was as though he was peeling away every layer of resentment he had quietly endured. Emma, who usually avoided conflicts, tried to intervene. "Lucas, maybe you're taking this too seriously." He cut her off, though his tone remained calm and composed. "Seriously? Do you know what it's like to live in a house where you're invisible? Where every effort you make is dismissed, every accomplishment overlooked? You can call it an exaggeration, but it's my reality." For the first time, Peter hesitated, his usual confidence shaken, while their father stared at his plate as though searching for an answer there. Lucas took a deep breath, realizing this moment wasn't about seeking approval or apologies. It was about setting himself free. And finally he felt ready to leave it all behind. A few weeks after the big event, Lucas was invited to a family meeting, something rare and formal, as though he were being summoned as a high-ranking executive. At the heart of the discussion, his father, speaking in a gentler tone than usual, made a surprising proposal. "Lucas, maybe it's time to put our differences aside. We want you to bring your experience and ideas into our company. We could achieve so much more together." For a moment, Lucas sat in silence. It was the first time he had seen any sign of recognition from his father, but the words also felt like an attempt at control disguised as an opportunity. Peter, true to form, couldn't resist a jab. "After all, your company is still small. Together, you'd have more structure, more reach." Lucas smiled, but his gaze was serious. You're only noticing now what I'm capable of because it started to affect you. I didn't build what I have to give up my independence and go back to living in anyone's shadow." Ryan had warned him that such a proposal might come, but Lucas knew his response wouldn't be easy. He felt the weight of the possibility for reconciliation but also the clarity that his autonomy was what gave him purpose. "I don't want to burn bridges," Lucas said, his tone calm but resolute. "If there's something we can do as partners, I'm open to it. But going back to the way things were? That will never happen." His father looked at him with a mix of surprise and discomfort. Peter crossed his arms, while Emma seemed relieved that Lucas was standing his ground. As he left the meeting, Lucas felt something different. It wasn't anger or sadness but a sense of peace that came from knowing for the first time, the choice was entirely his. He had built his freedom and nothing, not even his family, would take that away from him. Lucas walked through the now renovated business center he had built, observing every detail with a serene smile. The once worn walls now displayed frames symbolizing the values he held dear: effort, resilience, and transformation. Every corner of the space reflected his journey, crafted with his own hands without relying on anyone else's validation. He no longer felt the need to prove himself to others, not even to his family. What he had achieved was far more than professional success. It was his freedom and, above all, his self-confidence. The pinnacle of his fulfillment came on an otherwise ordinary afternoon, as he spoke with a group of small business owners during a workshop he had organized. One of them approached him and said, "You have no idea how much your story inspires me. If you could do it, I can too." Lucas realized that his impact went beyond numbers or awards. He was creating a movement. His journey was no longer just about exceeding his family's expectations. Now he was a beacon for those who, like him, had once been labeled as failures but chose to rewrite their narratives. At the end of the day, as he locked the office door, Lucas paused for a moment and looked toward the horizon. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, but they no longer frightened him. He didn't need anyone's approval or his family's applause. His success was his own, shaped by his choices and his hands. With a final smile, he stepped into his car, feeling lighter than ever. The message was clear. He wasn't just the protagonist of his life, he was the author. And his story was only just beginning. Welcome to Spooky Stories, the channel where thrilling and mysterious tales come to life. Here you'll hear stories based on real events, with names and details changed to protect identities and, of course, to avoid any legal issues. So, get ready to dive into intriguing cases full of twists and turns that will keep you hooked until the very end. If you enjoy chilling and surprising stories, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. And don't forget to leave a like. It helps us bring even more amazing tales to you. At the end of this video, we've got a suggestion for another thrilling case waiting just for you. Stick around and uncover the secrets behind these dark stories with us.